guess I should get that welcome sign down since we are starting the show here. And of course, I am once again. There we go. Sean Reider, how you doing?
Doing good, Geoff. How about you?
Doing good. I forgot I had the welcome sign up there. Here we are. Albuquerque Journal Sports Live weekly show. It is Monday, December 9th, and nothing's going on this week. Not a whole lot to talk about. Don't know why we're here.
Absolutely nothing. Kind of a dead period, really.
Yeah, it pretty much is. So anyway, obviously there's a lot going on, and we know that. And I'm trying to fix this little light here now on my web camera. There we go. Whatever. You guys don't need to see me that well. What's going on, Sean? What'd you do this morning?
I sat in on Bronco Mendenhall, former New Mexico head coach. Feels weird to even say that out loud, to be honest with you. That's how quick things kind of moved. Former New Mexico head coach Bronco Mendenhall's introductory press conference at Utah State University. A lot of the tone was largely similar to that of his introductory presser at New Mexico, in terms of some of the messaging and all of that as well. He did discuss leaving New Mexico today. Trent Wood with the Deseret News asked a really good question about that. And Bronco made it clear that, it was not an easy decision. I think the words he used were very difficult. He said he was torn and hurt. He said he knew that fans would be kind of torn and hurt by the decision, and that was not an easy thing for him. It still is not an easy thing for him there. Said he loved the players here. He loved coaching here in a lot of respects. He loved the fans. Specifically talked about the Washington State game, and is that being kind of a core memory and all that too. He also talked about a little bit, not in that answer in particular. Somebody else asked a question. I don't remember who, about, being back at Utah State and kind of showing that emotion after they came back and after New Mexico came back and beat Utah State in that stadium and all that too, and how that emotion kind of washed over him then, and how much it meant to him that, New Mexico had kind of reached maybe a little bit of a turning point there in terms of, coming back and winning a game that they really it's kind of a question they would be able to win earlier in the season. But, that's how I spent my morning. It seems like everybody on Twitter is taking it really well in terms of looking at the content. So, yeah.
Adam's in already. Feel like a lot has happened since your last live show. I'd say so.
A couple things.
There's been a lot that's gone on in Lobo athletics in the past week. I am curious on this. I don't think it's something we'll ever truly know until Bronco writes a book, I suppose.
He's written one book.
I know, until he writes his next chapter, I guess, book. And in an honest moment, I am curious from Bronco Mendenhall when he started considering the Utah State job, if it goes back to last summer when it opened, and how deep he let his mind go into, man, if that was open, last December, I would have taken that over the UNM job. And he would have. I mean, let's be clear. He would have taken Utah State over UNM had both been presented to him at the same time, for a lot of reasons, and family and his faith and all that, I think, are part of it. The money, I don't know if it would have been the same then. Remember, this is before the promise to invest in the program was officially given when they joined the Pac-12. So I don't know that Utah State would have paid then exactly what they're paying now, or if this is somewhat related to their commitment to join the Pac-12, which came with a promise, a contractual obligation among new Pac-12 members to spend a certain amount. I don't know if the dollar amount is in their memorandum of understanding and the terms that they signed when they joined or not, but I don't know if there's a specific dollar amount. There may have been, but there is language in there that says you will invest at a certain rate amongst or compared to your peers in this league. And frankly, that's, I don't want to go into conference realignment too much, but that was sort of the crux of their leaving the Mountain West to begin with, something that all school presidents and ADs were already discussing in the Mountain West at the time, was a minimum threshold of investment into athletics. The 5 schools that left, decided they weren't going to wait for that to happen. They wanted to move on to their new conference where schools would invest a certain amount, which would help the entire league. And that's where we're at. So, here we go. Lobo Fish is in. What's up, Lobo fans? Thanks for doing the show, Sean and Geoff. Cherry Blood Thursday. Cherry Blood Thursday.
So Thursday was the day that all
Thursday
the
the official
Bronco
day?
stuff when we reported and all that too.
Yeah,
And Devin left.
Thursday was the official day. Okay, yeah. So
I do-
Wednesday night, we kind of knew it was happening Wednesday night, but it was Thursday that everything officially happened, right?
Exactly. When
right.
when it all kind of came down to the wire there. Weiss Song entered the portal. I do want to add one thing in particular, to kind of go off your earlier point, the honest moment of how early had it been that he had been contacting all that too. He did discuss that during the introductory press conference today, not in incredibly clear terms.
Yeah.
He did say that and everybody can take, these kind of comments at face value, right? Obviously, that he's probably one of the hardest coaches in the country to kind of reach in season if it is a search. He did make it clear that he was committed and dedicated through the season and all that too, whether that means he had representation on the side kind of working and all that too and everything. He made it clear that this was kind of a quicker, I don't want to say quick outright, but a quicker process in his kind of mind and how it played out in terms of contact, interview, going from there. And again, everybody can take those, those comments at face value too.
But I'll point out, Bronco's a man who surrounds himself with people he very much trusts.
Yeah.
People that are very loyal to him. And that includes an agent. He trusts his agent, knows how to have those conversations without having to check in with Bronco, at every turn, after every conversation. I imagine Bronco surrounds himself at the professional level, even beyond a coaching staff, with the type of people that he trusts to have carried on those conversations, even if he had no idea they were happening. That said, again, there's so much to dissect over the past week.
Yeah.
But it was last Tuesday morning that you specifically tried to pin him down on, has Utah State approached you? Have you interviewed for Utah State? While he answered truthfully, as far as we know, we're playing a lot of games with the word approached, right? Did Utah State approach him? Did they approach his agent? Does his agent approach them? Whatever. Have you interviewed with Utah State? He had not formally interviewed at that point, I believe. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean there weren't discussions.
Exactly.
And I think that in the spirit of what was being asked in that press conference, not just by you, but by others, and then you tried to pin him down at the very end of it, in the spirit of what was being asked, Broncos certainly knew what was being asked, and I think answered in a way that was safe for him in his position, that he was looking at a new job and didn't want to jeopardize anything weird like that. But I'm not going to totally just say it's okay for coaches to lie. While I understand what he was doing, he was not entirely forthcoming. He is not the first to have ever been in that position. Coaches do it all the time, but it's sort of one of the things that makes me want to remind people that, people have their opinions of journalists. Certainly people have their opinion of a lot of professions in this world, but fans tend to be so blindly loyal to the coaches of the teams that they love up until the day they're not. And then it's a total 180. You can love the team you like, and you can love the coach that coaches your team. Understand they have games to play too, and that sometimes includes not being forthright with the fans. And Bronco couldn't last Tuesday be forthright with the fans because he was interviewing and in the process of taking another job. And until he got that other job, he couldn't actually honestly and in the spirit of what was being asked be forthcoming in that moment. But the question is, when was that moment started, right? When was his agent and when were the talks going on? I really don't think from Tuesday morning, nothing had happened. And then by Wednesday night, it was already a done deal. I don't think that's how it played out, right? I mean, I think there was more than a 24-hour period where the wheels were turning on this. So anyway, that's just kind of my 2 cents on how coaches have to handle that. I don't blame him for that because I understand where he was coming from. But let's just remember, too, that coaches aren't always 100% forthright in their answers about jobs and things like that. So
definitely, I mean, definitely not 100% forthright. Definitely wasn't a 24-hour process either. I have to get into the semantics discussion just a little bit. Like, if I could go back in time, I would have asked a third follow-up. Hey, has your representation been contacted and all that too? But I'm kind of convinced at this point that I don't think it would have been yes, my agents have been in contact with Utah State. We have been talking about. They have been handling that while I was in the season. I don't think it would have been a forthright answer there either. So the spirit of the questions and all that too, I'm in total agreement with you and all that as well. Anyways.
We got Casa del Verde Entertainment. Unique name for a person. Come on, guys. This was done deal in August. I don't believe it was a done deal in August, but I'm not naive enough to think that the wheels weren't at least turning back in August. I think if Nate Dreiling somehow knocked it out of the park from the time he went interim to now, and if Bronco and the Lobos, who remember started 0-4, had they gone winless or won one game, or had they gone, won 10 games or something like that, that there were things that were in play back in August that I don't think Bronco to Utah State was a done deal in August, but I do think that it was at least on the table from the day that job opened last summer. I would agree with that. I think it was on the table, but I don't think it was a done deal.
Probably on the table. I wouldn't say a done deal either, too. And there were other candidates in this as well, right?
Absolutely. Bronco wasn't the only guy they were considering. So to say this was done back in August isn't entirely true, because they were exploring a lot of other options too.
Really, after the night of the Hawaii game, really, and I didn't go to Hawaii, I was in the office doing that game and all that. The conversation I had with somebody after was, okay, well, we're kind of shifting our focus to Bronco and Utah State. And the domino that I kind of needed to see fall in some ways is Jay Hill sticking in. Jay Hill, BYU defensive coordinator, former Weber State head coach. That's a guy that had been involved in the Utah State, involved in I believe interview processes for that Utah State job and all that in the past, even when it wasn't, it was open, I think, before Blake Anderson took the job too. And there were other candidates for sure. But this how
I would say again, Bronco played the game the way he had to play it, but Utah State had a game to play too, and it wasn't just locking in on Bronco in August and never looking at anyone else. Lobo Fish did say this first part earlier and then resent a message. I'm just getting back to it. I've never been so disenchanted with UNM sports as I am right now. Bronco wasted all of our time and his also. Why was he so unhappy? I don't know if I'm not trying to defend him. I don't think he was unhappy. I think Utah State and $2 million had a whole lot to do with the fact that his $1.2 million and a fun season of getting a team to buy into what he was selling. I think he enjoyed his time at New Mexico. People don't want to hear that. People don't want to believe it because it's a little easier when the breakup happens to think of all the worst things you can think of the guy leaving. The guy got paid $2 million to start. It's going to grow to over $3 million, and his coach's salary pool grew immensely. And it's home, man. I just think it is what it is, and UNM wasn't home, but I don't think he had a bad time here. I really don't.
I don't think I don't think he would have, cried on the field after Utah State or cried on the field after Washington State or, lauded his team after, beating New Mexico State or, beating Air Force and all that too. And, the run they made down the stretch, beating San Diego State and everything too. Yeah, I can't say for sure that he, was or wasn't unhappy or anything like that. It's unlikely too that we'll ever get the full picture on that one in particular, to be honest.
Right, and I don't think you can pull it over on the players as well as he did if he was, this was all done deal and he was unhappy the whole time. Like, they bought into him because they all believed in what they were doing here, and they might have gotten to a bowl game and the way that team that probably wasn't good enough to be a bowl team. There's a reason they were a 1.5 and then a 2.5 game over under sort of team going into this year. They all bought in, and it wasn't because he was such a good actor that he fooled all of them too. Like, I think he enjoyed his time here until the point that he realized he was leaving to Utah State. Now, that's the other question. When did he realize for sure that this was probably going to happen? Conspiracy theories will go crazy among Lobo fans about whether or not he knew before the Hawaii game or not. And I get that, as you touched on and all that. Like, I don't know when he really thought this was a possibility. And we may not, frankly, we may not ever know.
And to be fair, I think, part of that, in terms of like when Bronco knew immediately in his head, like, yeah, it's a Bronco thing. I think some more clear messaging from UNM in terms of the process of how it played out on their end too would certainly help with a little bit of kind of shedding light to that whole thing. So, yeah.
All right, Richie. Look, Richie, I don't want to bring up that. Have a little roundup with you guys after everything feels like a breakup. It does. that's what the sports world is, right? I mean, players leaving. I can tell you there's one Lobo basketball coach right now that broke up with his favorite Yankee last night with Soto signing with the Mets. And
What an ungodly amount of money, man. That is insane.
well, I was giving Patino a hard time when that happened, and I realized, like, in a text message, and he loves him some Juan Soto and the Yankees. He loves the Yankees for sure. And when Soto went to the Mets, I was giving him a hard time about it, and I realized, no, like, he's really bothered by this. Like, this is you forget sometimes. Like, some fans of certain sports, like, I'm not really a fan of any team, any college, any, as much as people want to say I'm an Aggie homer and or Lobo homer or
Die hard. You're a Niners
Raider,
fan. You're a Niners fan.
except for the Niners. The
Yeah.
Niners are really the only team that I'm like bummed out when they have, every player on their roster get injured and Christian McCaffrey's out and Deebo Samuel isn't playing that well. And, not to bring up very specific situations, but yeah. Anyway, the Niners are the only team I really get that way about. Apparently the Yankees are the team that Patino gets that way about a little bit too, because he was bothered last night that Juan Soto went. So anyway, Richie, what I wanted to bring up though, don't think we forgot. You put this team on your back, and you didn't deliver a bowl game.
Whoa! Don't put this on Richie.
Well,
Come on.
No. Richie said, "I will carry this team to a bowl game." I believe on one of these shows.
I think Richie was ready for Braden Shager, not Mike Alejado in that finale. I think Richie was going into that finale thinking it was going to be Shager and it was going to be manageable in that end. And Alejado, you can't plan for that. You just can't.
All right. You get some follow-ups here from Richie. They did probably hit him with a good ass pitch and everything lined up. I think there's some truth to that. Like, I mean, as you put it, a good ass pitch includes $2 million and $3 million for coaches. I will say this:
$3.5 million. That escalates by $500K every single year.
And I will say this: the Lobos right now we're paying him. I mean, UNM was paying him $1.2 million per year. I know some people were getting confused as to why his base salary says $400,000. It's just a UNM. How they do the contracts here is different than other states. How they do their contracts. Richard Pitino gets paid $400,000 a year in base salary. Bronco Mendenhall gets $400,000. It has to do with when they go to buyouts and stuff like that. What the school may owe a coach if they fire him or whatever is only the $400,000 in base, because the other obligations are media and things that are in the for coaches in the vice president of athletics, the athletic director's hands, or in the position of an athletic director in Garnett Stokes' hands, kind of deciding on, like, did he promote the program, those kind of things. But the base salary is all the school ever really owes at the end of the contract, unless it's spelled out differently. But anyway, that's why New Mexico coaches often have a really low base salary, and some people get confused and think, oh, they're only paying $400,000 at New Mexico. They're not. So what I wanted to say, though, is if they were paying Bronco $1.2 million and his coaching staff $1.8 million at UNM, I am assured, I don't know what the number is that they offered him, but I am assured Fernando Lobo's statement last week that they made an aggressive offer is accurate relative to what he was getting paid, relative to what UNM's ever paid anybody, relative to all that. They made an aggressive offer to keep Bronco, and it included more money for the coaching staff. It included more money for him. It did not include what Utah State ultimately offered over the course of a 6-year contract. I don't think there's any denying that it didn't hit those kind of numbers. But UNM it's my understanding and belief genuinely that UNM made an offer that kind of really hasn't been made before. Maybe 10 years ago in March of 2013, there was a pretty good offer on the table, and a term sheet agreed to with Steve Alford that 10 days later ended up being sorry, I'm taking this UCLA job kind of deal. So I do think UNM's made an offer in this realm before, but I think this was probably going to be even more, especially when you consider the coaching staff salary pool, because in basketball, you don't have that same side part to the deal. You have a coaching staff salary pool in basketball, but it's not including 20 coaches, So I think this was probably an unprecedented offer that they made Bronco to try and keep him here. I just don't know exactly what that was.
I don't know either. And that's, I don't know if we will ever know either, to be honest with you. But
one more quick one from Richie. If he stays there for more than a year, that would show he would have he would be genuine to it. No, I'd be shocked if he did another one and done anywhere.
That'd
Now,
be pretty unbelievable, and it would really. And I don't know where would he even do the next one and done too. It wouldn't be back to BYU, like,
right.
and they just extend Sataki. So yeah, I don't know.
Wonder what Jimmy thinks right now.
Jimmy, good to see you.
Bronco speaks with a forked tongue. There are a lot of Lobo fans feeling pretty jaded right now, and I'm not going to argue with any of them on how to feel. I don't tell a fan how to fan. So let's see here. James Green on YouTube is telling us huge difference in his demeanor between the UNM press conference and the USU press conference. He never wanted to be here.
I'll disagree.
I disagree.
If we're talking both intro pressers, I thought they were pretty similar tones, honestly. If anything, I thought the Utah State one was maybe a little more held back on the emotion, to be honest with you. I thought it was pretty similar tones overall. I didn't think there was a huge difference. I truly think like he wanted to be here. It's just that certain things changed. From when he first, kind of agreed to that memorandum of understanding and all that too, and got to work out here to obviously, the last couple weeks. We can break down and kind of, unfortunately speculate a lot of those, but I do believe things changed, and I do believe he did want to be here.
James, you are not alone. While Sean and I may disagree with you, you are not alone. People do believe what you said, including Jimmy H. Exactly, James. I will throw them all up here. Patricia Darling. I just want to know how many times he cried while knowing he was going to USU week. It's fair, right? Like it is a fair question. He got emotional multiple times after I think the possibility was already there. But that doesn't change the fact that it still could have been emotional, So let's see here. How about recruiting all these players from Utah who signed with UNM but knew they were going to Utah State?
I don't think they really knew, to be honest with you. It's weird. This is always like such an odd thing. Like you see like fans talk about like, oh, like the recruits have heard good things about the new coach. And it's like the recruits have heard what? I don't know about that. I think those players absolutely committed to New Mexico. If you're a high school recruit, I don't think you're going to go out and, hey, we're going to commit to this one school and then we're going to go to the other school. So you're going to have your whole big deal, big moment where you sign. What do they even sign anymore? Financial aid agreements? Because they don't really sign NLIs.
Yeah, I would throw this out there too. They recruited players. If they were telling them they were recruiting them for Utah State, any player they ended up not offering or any player that ended up going somewhere else, that would get out pretty quickly.
And frankly, and like what I heard like on Thursday in terms of talking to people and all that, like even as there was all this chatter and smoke that ended up being correct about Bronco being in like Logan and interviewing for the job, what I heard inside the facility, inside the Todeem, it was legit everybody working as if nothing else was going on. And I believe that. That's kind of the what I've seen from that staff. We've talked about the tears and all that. The crocodile tears has been
here's a better message. Your Niners smoked us. That's right, Adam.
Yeah, it could be worse, Geoff. You could be a Bears fan, man.
Look, the Niners may never lose again. All right. Let's move over. Let's wrap up if there's any more general Bronco thoughts here. Smart about the buyout, screwing UNM out of a cool $1 million. Yeah, true. UNM gave him that contract. So, I hate the way coaching buyouts have taken over the coaching industry. Coaches have had the upper hand on these for a long time, and I think at some point a university standing up to the buyout situation would be great. But they feel then they would narrow their candidate pool down. But dropping $1 million from one day to the next. It's dramatic how that works, right? In the contract year, December 1st was at the end of the start of his new contract year, and it dropped from $3 million to $2 million. And had he known about any of this, he certainly waited till the right week to do this. So that's why Pitino always does media, even though he hates it.
I think this is in reference to the Yankees.
Could be. And Pitino, by the way, Pitino jokes around how much he hates it. When right before the cameras are on in those weekly pressers and after a win anyway, he's joking around in the post game. He loves the media. He loves it. Nice, easy question to answer here, Eddie. Why is
Like in
everything
general,
so
or just
horrible?
like overall?
Things are good for the 49ers right now because they may never lose again. I will. Ben Wysong, let me address this because I think this is fair.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it. I think if it was not last show, it was at least 2 shows ago. I mean,
yeah. So Ben Wysong on YouTube points out I have a theory. I do believe the wheels started to turn when it was known that Dave Williams was not going to be the new AD. I heard he was instrumental in getting him here to begin with. That's absolutely true. Dave Williams and Eddie Nunez it was a 2-man show that got Bronco here, the private planes and the jets and the this and that to Montana to seal the deal and all that stuff. And Dave Williams was absolutely there every step of the way. If the Dave Williams thing wasn't a factor, it was certainly something that Bronco paid attention to very closely, and that's fair. That doesn't mean he doesn't like the new guy. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means he doesn't know the new guy. The new guy, Fernando, probably didn't get I don't want to say fair because I don't want to load this with Bronco didn't give him a chance, but for lack of me knowing the better way to say this, Fernando probably didn't get a fair chance to present himself and make his case that, hey, look, I can be a good AD too. But I do think it's fair to say that Dave Williams and Bronco got along very well, and Dave Williams was a part of this. So yeah, I think that could be a piece of it for sure. I think that makes it an easier maybe next step. I think ultimately the piece of the puzzle was the money in the Utah's home kind of thing. But the Dave Williams factor could have been part of this as well. And I guess until Bronco wants to fess up about it, we'll probably never know for sure. But I do think that that conversation and that thought, Ben, has made its way to my ears, and I've heard it from others too.
And I'll say one thing. You kind of noted the fair shake element of it too. I mean, if you are, I think the timeline probably worked, just the overall college football, like postseason timeline worked against UNM in that aspect. And it's kind of working against them right now, to be frank. If you are a coach and you are courting interest from this attractive offer, it's home, money, all that. Do you want to wait any longer than you need to kind of give the new guy a fair shake when the portal opens on Monday and you're going to have a really heavy lift of getting that roster together and all that too? And you can't not be, kind of in between jobs when all that's going on. Like you have to hit the ground running. You have to be activated over these 20 days.
You're talking about timing a little bit. Yeah. Here's another piece of the timing puzzle is again from Ben, and you're not wrong, Ben. There was no job opening in Utah last year at this time. And remember December of 2000. December. It wasn't like just in the summer when the Utah. Some people think of in terms of they Gary Anderson. They fired him before the season started. So
Blake Anderson.
Sorry,
there's a couple Andersons.
Long Anderson. They fired him before the season started. So if Bronco wanted to do this, then he could have. But no. The coaching cycle's a December, maybe January thing. It's not a summer thing. And last year at come December, the Utah jobs were not open, and going home was not exactly the option for Bronco and his staff. Remember, like it is now. So yeah, just to be clear for those who may not be able to see it there on whatever size screen you're watching, Ben Wysong said, I believe he wanted to be here. We have to remember that there were no head coaching jobs in the state of Utah at this time last year. It's all about timing. There's absolute truth to that.
Yep.
I believe that.
I'll also put this out there. I don't even know why I'm putting this out there, but UNM was the job he ended up taking out last year's cycle. But he did interview with Boise State, and he did interview with Oregon State as well, which is his alma mater. And they ended up doing the internal promotion there, actually at both places. So yeah, he was certainly, there was other options there too, and UNM ended up being the most attractive in the sense that what he's kind of told us was he'd been here before and everything.
Well, not only had been here before,
and he could build it up, because
the whole rebuild thing, he wouldn't have been rebuilding as nearly as much at either of those other two, but especially not Boise State.
Not Boise, no.
Quick follow-up from Jimmy H. Bring Luke back, Ben. He was my favorite player. Ben, you're on the clock now. You're on the clock to tell us exactly where Luke is going, when he's making his decision, and if he will be coming back to New Mexico. So make sure you go ahead and let us know as soon as you know, Ben.
Breaking news from Blair Angelo, a college football recruiting analyst covering the West region of 24/7 Sports. New Mexico running back transfer Eli Sanders is currently on a visit to Michigan State.
Oh, calm down. You're so excited about that.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm excited about anything right now.
All right, let's start transitioning into coaching rumors and some of this transfer portal stuff. How many players are still on the team?
I don't have a hard and fast number of how many players are still on the team, Adam. This has been an easier process with the portal than last year. I'll say that in some ways. In terms of like my job, I know there are, I believe it's 33 or 34 that have either declared their intentions to enter the portal or have submitted the necessary paperwork to be in the portal. There's a difference between the two. In terms of, they honored 19 seniors on senior night. This one's a little trickier. I think 9 or 10 of those guys can't come back. I think 9 or 10. And I think the others kind of have like that, that COVID year or that extra year that they could have used. And I think certainly the situation is probably going to play a role in whether they do come back and all that. But yeah, that is, and a couple of those guys have also entered the portal anyways. So honestly, I'm probably getting that number. Actually, excuse me, never mind. That's not screwing with the number. So probably around 43, 44, guys that are, likely going to leave, but we'll see what happens, right? With the portal, you can definitely, bring a new guy in and a new guy can re-recruit guys. Bronco re-recruited Andrew Henry and Tavian Combs out of the portal. Christian Ellis came back too. So we'll see what happens in that regard.
We'll kind of bounce back and forth between portal questions and comments and coaching candidate, coaching hire comments, stuff like that. Jimmy H just asking any rumors or tips on the next coaching hire. I'll throw in this one as well. Juan Beza was asking earlier, might have already been asked, but any known candidates for the head coaching job? You can start answering some of this. I'm going to throw some other ones up there. There was one about, let me scroll down here just because, again, on my screen, it's not exactly the same as it looks like on your guys' screen on YouTube there. So I'm scrolling in a different way. But GPAC Lobo says, Terrence Mathis, anyone? He interviewed, this last time around, correct? That is correct.
Real
quick, let me throw two other ones real quick. Eddie Brock says that Texas A&M dude seems like a pipe dream of sorts. And then also the Rocky Long conversation, which, by the way, I'm sitting next to Frank on Saturday night at the basketball game, Frank Mercogliano, and somebody came and asked him, they're like, hey, you work with football, right? Like, so is Rocky a possibility or not? And I'm like, Jesus, man. The Rocky, I bring up this comment from Eddie Brock because the Rocky Long is, comment is going to be there forever. And maybe it's similar now to the Terrence Mathis one. Maybe they owe those guys a call, but I guarantee you the new AD who never had really a New Mexico tie has a list, and I'll bet you those guys aren't on it. Now, he's at New Mexico now, so maybe he has some obligation to reach out to some of those guys. But I think Rocky Long will be mentioned even 50 years after he passes. So go ahead, Sean. I interrupted you there. What can you say about coaching candidates and coaching rumors and all that kind of stuff for UNM?
Yeah, so I wrote a story on Saturday and put that out. I spoke with Fernando Lobo one-on-one and, kind of asked him a good deal of questions about this coaching search and what's probably going to go down with it. He is really did not disclose a lot of specifics to us and what he is looking for, whether it's sitting head coach experience or, would he be open to hiring a coordinator, maybe even like an up and coming, position coach or something like that, something kind of interesting there, or a Terrence Mathis, who had been a high school head coach until this year when he, started coaching Morehouse College down in Atlanta and all that too. So we don't have a great idea of a lot of specifics. I asked him do local ties matter? Right. Because generally I think a lot of fans are going to feel that local ties will matter because Bronco came in and, even he had ties here but the ties to Utah, kind of ended up outweighing those New Mexico ties in that regards too. So it's interesting, right? There's a lot of names out there. I do think the Rocky name will always be pitched, right? And
that's fair. Like with me,
because he interviewed last year, he was a finalist.
The tone I kind of gave when I was bringing up Rocky, I don't want people to think that means like Rocky doesn't deserve it based just on his resume and all that. I just think when the same name pops up every time there's an opening at a school, sometimes it diminishes the possibility of it actually happening. It becomes a blind spot, if you will. The school just kind of starts putting that name into a category of, yes, that's what the fans always bring up, and it's just not going to happen. But that doesn't mean Rocky can't be a good coach again. His retirement gig of being a defensive coordinator and then being a defensive coordinator at Syracuse and then now being up in Colorado doing some stuff. I don't know where Rocky's at right now in terms of how much enthusiasm and all that he has for the portal.
So
recruiting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I talked. So when he went to, Fort Lewis College in Durango, he's a defensive analyst there. And I spoke with some of the Fort Lewis guys on staff. And then I talked to Rocky in August and wrote a little story about that. The sense I get is that off of that conversation in particular, that I don't think he will be putting his name in the hat for this job. And if he does get contacted, I don't think he's going to, take that process very far. One of the things that we talked about in that conversation was, one of the things that he brought up, I should say, was that he said it kind of felt like transitioning time and all of that. You still want to be around the game. And to him, he felt that, being a defensive analyst and, being able to pore over film and kind of work on stuff without really, coaching on field and all that, that was a really attractive idea to him. Maybe things have changed. It's been a couple months in August and all that too. Maybe he does have that itch. But that was something that we did talk about in pretty clear terms. The idea of, transitioning to, kind of retirement and, moving on from that while still getting a little bit of the football fix. So, yeah, I would be I don't know if I would be that surprised if we ended up finding out after a new head coach got hired, or if Rocky did get hired, that, he did get involved in the process, because I wasn't expecting to be involved in the process last year, and he was involved all the way to the very end. In terms of the Texas A&M guy that people are throwing out, that is Holman Wiggins. He was a running back here, I think, in the early 2000s. Pretty sure early 2000s. I don't remember the exact years. Co-offensive coordinator at Texas A&M.
He's got a good resume, too.
Say it again?
He's got a good resume.
Yeah, he was the wide receivers coach for Alabama when Devontae Smith won the Heisman. Co-OC at Texas A&M right now, just coming off that first season. Well, they have a bowl. I don't even – who's A&M playing in a bowl this year? I don't even know.
It's not the New Mexico Bowl.
Not the New Mexico Bowl. It is not. I don't remember for sure. I got to look back at this. I probably should have prepped for this show by looking back, because he was a name that I remember we asked Eddie about after the search had concluded, and you can kind of open up a little bit more.
USC in the Las Vegas Bowl.
What's up?
It's USC in the Las Vegas Bowl.
Okay. I know.
For Texas A&M.
Don't quote me on this. I don't remember for sure if he did interview or if he was just contacted. I remember Eddie Nunez saying that he was involved in the process in some capacity. I got to look back at whatever story he wrote at that time or whatever interview to kind of figure that out. But I think that would be an intriguing, a really intriguing possibility. A guy with, really sound New Mexico ties, has never been a head coach before, and has coached at the very highest level of college football with a good degree of success. I believe he's the co-OC with Colin Klein at Texas A&M, right?
Yep.
So we'll see. That would be really interesting as well, too. I'm seeing some people also. Yes, Justin.
So Matt Wells buzz. Heard his name a lot last year. That's from Justin.
Wells was a finalist last year, I'm pretty sure, if I remember.
Yeah, certainly those of Justin or of Matt Wells and with his Texas Tech ties. We got another one here from Lobo Fish saying the same name. What do you think about Matt Wells? Ex-Utah State coach, ex-Lobo quarterback coach, current KSU offensive coordinator. Also, for those who don't know, I don't know why I like throwing this out there, but Ray Birmingham's cousin.
Yes.
Mr. New Mexico, Ray Birmingham, who's been the baseball coach at New Mexico Junior College when they went to the Junior College World Series. Been New Mexico's coach. He's a New Mexico State grad. He's now on the Board of Regents for Eastern New Mexico. So Mr. New Mexico, Ray Birmingham's cousin, is Matt Wells. And, I think that's safe to say that Matt Wells will certainly be, at least in whatever initial net is cast. I'll throw this out there, too. A new AD comes in, has his list, has his connections, was hired because of his connections and his list and who he is. You probably have two buckets, right? You fill up one bucket of all the names you probably had in mind already based on your connections. There was a comment earlier about, does it come from the Urban Meyer coaching tree?
Yep.
Those are the Fernando Lobo names that he's going to go to and seek out. There's another bucket of, look, you're at UNM now. there are a few guys that deserve your attention because there's a business side to this. It would make boosters happy. It would make alumni happy. It would make UNM happy if you at least give these guys a chance. And I don't mean just, for the sake of doing it, but you better consider a handful of these guys in the UNM connections. Fernando Lobo may never have crossed paths in his life with a Matt Wells or a Rocky Long, but I think he will learn pretty quickly that those are two names that you probably need to throw in the bucket, at least early on. And then you start whittling things down for sure. But I do think when you hire an AD, just because he's from somewhere else, you got to give him a chance to make the hire. And just remember, his connections aren't all New Mexico guys. His connections, in fact, are not New Mexico guys. So we'll see what Fernando does with this.
Yeah, and I think to kind of circle back, like I have not talked to the Matt Wells camp or whatever kind of terms we use in searches like this too. But I do kind of get a thin sense that he would be interested in this position for sure. Obviously
Zach Lobo would not be. He is saying Wells is a Utah State alma mater. Hard pass.
yeah. Utah State forever is going to be looked at a little bit differently around here for sure. Zach Arnett, I believe Adam put that in there too. Zach Arnett, La Cueva grad, played at UNM as well, was the defensive coordinator under Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Unfortunately, when Mike Leach passed away, was elevated to head coach. It did not go particularly well, although I do know some kind of coaches and, that weren't particularly that thought he got a little too short of a leash there in particular, because he was fired in late October of last year. He didn't even get that full season at the helm. So, that would be interesting. He does have head coaching experience. Not a lot, but it's in the SEC. It's in Mississippi State, a place that is historically tougher to win at compared to other places as well, too. I forgot who tweeted last week that he would be interested in the job. I think he would be interested in the job, sure, but he is – I forget what his exact role on Ole Miss is right now, because he went over to Ole Miss, and I think it was as like a defensive analyst initially, but I feel like he got elevated at some point to maybe something more. I could be making this up in my mind. Somebody in the comments just threw out a name that I think is fascinating too.
Real quick, let me just throw this comment since I have it up on the screen. FCS coaches, any of them in the mix? This was one that was on Twitter earlier, but I'm glad to see Aztec to Tacoma.
This is the name I was talking about. This one is really interesting to me too.
Zach Arnett, real quick, is still listed as an analyst on Ole Miss.
He's still a defensive analyst. Okay. Let me get back to the FCS comment too before we get into Aztec to Tacoma's comment as well. I think they are for sure. I know Jason Eck was another name that was involved in that Utah State search pretty late and all that too. After Jay Hill kind of took his name out, there was chatter about it being Jason Eck, who's the Idaho head coach. Idaho was really stinking rough for a hot minute. Really, really stinking rough at the FCS level. And he has breathed a ton of new life. I forget who they're playing this weekend in the FCS playoffs, but he made the playoffs last year too. He was a guy that we had as a coaching candidate last year as well. And I think he certainly is a verifiable candidate at New Mexico right now. And I think it'd be silly to maybe not look at him. Brent Vigen, I don't even know.
I think it's Vegan.
The Montana State. The Montana State head coach, who now has some familiarity with University Stadium and at least a little bit with Albuquerque after this season. I don't know. I don't have any intel on that in particular that I'm really pointing to, just to be clear. I just have a hard time seeing it. And it's also the timeline of Brent Vigen is not going to leave Montana State in the middle of this playoff run where they could win that national title to come coach New Mexico. I just don't see that right now, unless it is a really significant, impressive financial offer. And I kind of want to go back to that idea too. Somebody commented something relatively similar about that. That was the question I asked Fernando on Saturday. Bronco was the highest paid coach in school history, $1.2 million a year and all that, base compensation, solid incentives and all that too. Is there are you guys willing to, I believe I phrased the question, are you going to, are you looking to pay the next head coach in a similar range there? And he said that's kind of still up in the air. And maybe there is a really compelling offer from here financially in terms of program commitment and all that too, to get a guy like Vegan in for the build here. Because it definitely will be a build. Would be interesting to see if he's waiting from someone in Texas, was the comment.
Yeah, I'll get back to that real quick. I want to jump in on this just because it was from earlier. UNM's top 3 coaching prospects. I don't know that there's a list that we really have. You can throw out a bunch of names. But any chance to retain some of the team if the right guy is hired this week? I mean, absolutely is the answer to that. But we got to wait and see who it is, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, absolutely, you could retain some of the guys if you bring in the right person. Just to prove the point, I'll use a very extreme example. If Nick Saban comes in here, I think you can retain some of the guys that are in the portal right now. Not saying that he will, but back to this real quick. Jello did say would be interesting to see if he, meaning Fernando Lobo, is waiting for someone from Texas right now. Which
what are they waiting for? I mean, Pete Pete. I'm just gonna call him Pete.
PK.
Yeah, he's got Mountain West experience. I believe he played at Boise State back when they were D2, and I think when they won a national title.
Well, if I had to say, I would say he's currently on staff at UT.
Yeah, he's the
has legit ties to the Mountain West as a former BSU coordinator.
Didn't even see Isaac Tacoma. My bad. But yeah, no, he was the co-defensive coordinator last year when Geoff Choate was on staff. Also the co-defensive coordinator. He ended up going to Nevada. So that's a little bit of an interesting wrinkle there too. Texas defense has been really stinking good for a whole lot of the season. They were good last year. I mean, it's probably the best D line in the country, if we're being straight up. Jahdae Barron, one of my favorite players to watch in all of college football. So yeah, I that's an interesting name there too. I do also kind of want to go back to the. I'm going back to everything in the show. The Urban Meyer,
since his name came up real quick. Even with all his incentives, Vegan right now is making just south of $400,000 a year.
Yeah, we'll see.
The FCS FBS jump is a big one.
It's a big one, and it's also different situations here than in Montana State. In terms of the Urban Meyer coaching tree, it's really interesting. The kind of direct tree. Not a lot of really super attractive candidates at the moment. Stan Drayton was a big Urban Meyer guy, big Urban Meyer tree guy. He just got fired at Temple. Pretty really, really rough run. Casey Keeler is now there at Temple. Dan Mullen is a Urban Meyer guy. I don't know if from some of the intel that I've seen nationally, not like me talking to anybody in particular, Dan Mullen was pretty interested in getting a coordinator job more than a head coaching job. And that just apparently isn't coming to fruition in this cycle. Is Dr. Nick Spiegel ready to coach? I don't know for sure, but that would be a fascinating hire. He's got a pretty nice practice. I think he's doing pretty well out here for himself. So, that would be interesting too.
Lobo Fish, real quick, can the current players who are in the portal cancel at any time in state UNM if they change their mind?
Yes, but it's going to depend on the coach.
Yeah, it'll depend on the coach. But I'll say this: it came up in a basketball presser last week, talking about football though. I really think that it is in every player's best interest every year to enter the transfer portal. I know I'll duck while you guys throw.
You're one of those guys. Come on.
I am. Because they should test their worth every year and see what's available. As long as the system is the way it is right now. And I mean, if let's take Luke Weissong since
you're allowed to say that, and I get it because of the basketball roster size and all that. Football, no. Like, let's not do that, please.
Says the football.
Not everybody's allowed to test their market worth. Don't do that.
So here's what I'm getting at. If you're making money and your window is your college years to make that money, and you're still getting a college degree if you're going to another college, it's not like you're forgetting the degree part of this. You should probably enter the portal every year. But what I think you need to normalize, what we need to normalize, and schools and coaches, frankly, need to get over is the mindset of once you enter the portal, you can't come back. I do think that there needs to be an opportunity for players to do both and not feel like they've betrayed fans and betrayed their coaches and all that kind of stuff. Their window to make money is so small, and it is right now for them in their college years that you should jump into the portal, see if you can go make some good money. And if you can't, you should have the option to come back. And if the coach says no, that's the coach's prerogative. But I think we need to normalize some of those players coming back It only happens a couple times a year. I think, like in basketball, I'm trying to remember who it was. Oh, shoot, now I can't remember. Some top 25 team had a player enter the portal and end up staying there. And it just doesn't happen very much. Once you enter the portal, it's sort of like, all bets are off. You can go play for any school in the whole country except the one you're actually at right now because you entered the portal.
Well, I don't think there's any coaches can take back whoever. Like I think you're just describing the current system like at play. It's just fan reaction to it and all that. And even then, I'm going to be honest. Like if JT Toppin entered the portal and JT Toppin came back, I still think a lot of Lobo fans would still love JT Toppin. Like hell yeah, we're thrilled.
Absolutely, 100%. I think there are some coaches that
the actual system as it is right now.
Take JT Toppin out of the equation and pick more of a, let's say, contributor, maybe even a low-level starter. And it's somebody like that enters the portal. The coaches move on because they have to replace them. And I get that. The player can't just take their time in this whole thing and hold the team hostage and say, hold my spot in case I want to come back. The timing of it's legit. But I do think some coaches need to sort of get over it too and understand that some of their own players may test what's out there, just like coaches take calls in the offseason even when they say they don't. I think that some of the coaches need to make sure and be more accepting to the players coming back.
Yeah, and I think there are definitely a good chunk of coaches out there that are pretty accepting. I don't know if I'm willing to pin all of this on the coaches in some sense.
No, no. I'm not pinning it all on the coaches.
Exactly. I do think there's a good deal of coaches out there that are okay with that and all right with that. Bronco was not. That was his thing. It was more of an old school mentality like that as well too. I do think it is just I do think, like you have basketball in your head with this a little bit more than football, to be honest with you. Like it's normal for a guy to go in and test the NBA draft waters and hear from a couple scouts and all that. Nobody tests the NFL draft waters. You're either in or you're out.
NBA draft is different than portal test.
Well, actually, no, you can test the NFL draft waters, but I think it's way more of a regular process with the NBA.
We're talking about very different things. Like testing the NBA waters now is structured in a way that it doesn't affect your status on the team anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Entering the portal and saying you want to see if you can play for another team has been viewed by a lot of college coaches as a betrayal to them. They take it personally and they move on. It's sort of like the recruiting process. If you don't commit to me this weekend, I'm moving on and finding another player to go recruit. Some coaches still play that game, and I don't like it. To do to 16, 17-year-old kids sometimes and their families, and it does still happen very much so. I do think coaches have a whole lot of power, and frankly, that's okay. They're coaches, whatever. But they don't have all the power anymore, and sometimes they need to get over themselves. And I would hope that any coach hired at UNM accepts all of these players who are in the portal back if they want to come back. If he wants them, I mean, I guess he can still make a decision, right? You give the coach that opportunity. But if you're a player at UNM right now and the portal is open right now and your future as a college football player is so unknown, you don't know who you're going to play for, you should be in the portal right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying, like it's frankly, like, I mean, yeah, I am shocked that there's not more guys in the portal if we're being that haven't announced and all that too. That I'm going.
You need more Lobo guys?
Yeah.
Real quick, because I'm going to take this off the screen. Braden Applehans did enter the portal last year, the day John Tonji committed to UNM. John Tonji now at former Colorado State player who's now at Wisconsin Player of the Year candidate, committed to UNM for about 24 hours, then deleted all his social media posts and stopped taking phone calls and all that good stuff.
I'll never forget the John Tonji era.
And left, right? And left for Wisconsin. Braden on the Monday after that weekend with all that happening said, no, I'm staying at UNM. Yeah. So, yeah, that did happen with Braden technically, but that was a little bit different situation where going into his third year at UNM, he saw the writing on the wall that there wasn't really going to be an opportunity for him to play. He is now playing quite a bit and playing well. Should have played more Saturday night, frankly.
To go back to just kind of end my my Urban Meyer tree kind of
dissertation. Yeah, we got a comment here.
Yeah, I think the one name out there from that tree, that direct Urban Meyer tree, that actually makes sort of some sense, and I think it would be a big swing because some of the national intel that you kind of saw was that he was interested in being a coordinator somewhere even before he was fired. Former FAU head coach, former Texas head coach, former Houston head coach, Tom Herman. That's a guy that was in the building with Fernando when they were, when he was at at Ohio State, working on ops and all that. He was in the building with him at Houston working in football ops. He was in the building with him at Texas, chief of staff.
They've worked together 3 different times, and they have a connection, and there's something to be said about alignment with your AD and your football coach.
Yeah, and I would be really, frankly, I would be shocked if there was no. I'm not saying I would be shocked if it didn't go deep or anything like that. I would be shocked if there was not a check-in. Hey, I mean, would this interest you? And we've worked together. We have that alignment. ADs and coaches and administration, they love saying alignment, and it's hard to imagine 2 guys that would not be aligned. Fernando was Herman's chief of staff when he was at Texas. So I think from the outside looking at them, feels like a very verifiable thing. Yeah, Geoff, you're the one throwing out everybody should enter the portal. This is chaos, man. It's chaos already.
It should be automatic portal, in fact.
No.
Just let them recruit all year.
Not for football.
Let them recruit year-round.
Do it for basketball. Do it for keep that in college hoops. Let's get some more sanity in college football, please.
Recruit year-round.
Tired of having them, 25, not even 25, we're at like 50 players tweet notifications on for the, with that being said, I am entering the transfer portal with X amount of years remaining.
Ronnie, you might be right. I think it's a guard. I want to say one of the St. John's guards even might have been it. But yeah, the KU big man entered the portal initially and came back. But yeah.
Was it Dickinson? It wasn't Dickinson, was it? Dickinson was getting paid.
Adam has a comment here. Thoughts on players signing contracts, and if a school wants them out of the portal, they have to buy it out.
I know some administrators that would love that.
Yeah, the big schools can still throw their weight around, but smaller schools won't be left out to dry, and can build the program up. Adam, so the contract situation is an interesting one in this NIL world, right? Players can now make money. And when you make money, you can do that based on certain terms that you sign up for, right? That's why some people are worried that, players might get taken advantage of and this and that, and it's all absolutely true. That's why maybe agents aren't the worst idea in the world. But point being, in the NIL contract, there is room for this. I don't think the scholarship contracts, you can do this because then you're getting into some NCAA rules, some what is a scholarship to a university really mean. I don't think the universities can put in there specific penalties and buyouts and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, I don't see why you can't in an NIL contract. I can tell you now that the 505 Sports Venture Foundation, the UNM collective that's paying a lot of the NIL money to current Lobo athletes, they now have it structured in a way, and this frankly is the JT Toppin model, where JT Toppin stayed in the portal a certain amount of time till he got his last payment. It's not why he did it, but it just worked out this way. But JT Toppin got paid one more time, even though he was about to leave, just because that's what the structure of his contract was. Now it is structured in a way that you get paid. Say you're getting paid. Let's just throw out a number. Jeff Grammer's getting an NIL contract of $100,000 this year. You get paid in increments. It's not $100,000 up front. It's not X amount per month per se. It could be structured that way. But what they have now is structured at the beginning. You get X amount. Maybe midway through the season, you get X amount. And at the end of the season, but then after the portal window closes is when you get your last payment. And that has to do with I think the JT Toppin situation was one where they really felt bad about giving JT Toppin a pretty hefty little paycheck last year, right about the time he was finally acknowledging he was going to Texas Tech to get a big paycheck. And so they still paid him. UNM paid him because that's the way it was set up. I do think that the NIL contract window or situation is one where you can get into buyouts, potential buyouts, or money being paid back and stuff like that. So we'll see how all that goes. But yeah, that's where it goes. And yes, every football player should be in the transfer portal.
Congrats on your NIL deal, by the way, Geoff. It's good stuff. I didn't know you had that coming in.
That's one of many, by the way.
Oh, good.
All right, let's see here.
We'll go back to the coaching thing a little bit too, because I know somebody has a comment in here about him. Gary Patterson was a name that was former TCU head coach Gary Patterson, former New Mexico defensive coordinator Gary Patterson. It was a name that was floated out last year He made it very clear that that was one of the weirdest parts of the search last year. He made it very clear in interviews that he wanted to coach and be a head coach somewhere again. He felt like he had more ball games left in him. At the same time, as like the search was like fully underway and, you know, things are flying around, he was in Africa on a safari trip, posting pictures of silverback gorillas, which is just one of the wildest things I remember from that search. And then he was at, oh my gosh, last season he was, I think he was an analyst at Texas. Okay, who was at Texas then? Fernando. I don't know how much contact they would have had then, but
well, don't forget the TCU connection when Chris Del Conte was.
Del Conte, exactly. Texas AD Chris Del Conte was the former TCU head coach. TCU AD when Gary Patterson was there. Did he hire? When was Del Conte? When did he start as AD? Do you know?
Oh no, I got Gary Patterson up right now. I don't know what the window was, but they, everything I've heard, I think they got along just fine.
Yeah, and so that's interesting there too. Del Conte is a guy that Lobo thanked in his speech for his guidance and all that too. Patterson, as of late, was on staff at Baylor as an analyst too. He's just kind of hitting all these Texas schools, but he was out, I think, before the start of the season. There was never a real clear reason given. I don't think Aranda really spoke a ton about that. But also, and I was doing a little bit of reading on that situation yesterday too, that there's a sense that he still wants to coach and still do something. And would a rebuild be attractive to Gary? Would this level of rebuild, would this level of, I'm assuming, kind of freedom to shape the roster and the staff and all that? I don't know. It would be interesting for sure, but we'll kind of see what happens there. It would be. How similar of a mold do you think that hire is to Bronco? I think it's relatively similar on its face, but also pretty different too.
No, I think it'd be pretty similar. It's an old school. People are going to take this phrase like I'm loading it, meaning something I'm not intending it to, but it's sort of an old school my way or the highway kind of thing. And Bronco had that.
But Bronco was
in a way that doesn't usually come with that phrasing, right?
Yeah, Bronco was not a screamer in practice. Yeah. Bronco didn't talk a lot in practice. Gary Patterson will dog cuss you off the practice field. Cuss you out.
They both have a look. These are the rules. This is the way we're going to do it, or you're not going to play kind of mentality. But one is a Bobby Knight throwing chairs, and one isn't. So I will say this: the Chris Del Conte. I mean, Gary Patterson was at TCU from '98 on as an assistant, and then the head coach, and then
Fran left, right?
Yeah, and then Chris Del Conte didn't come in until 2009, so he had already been there over a decade. And Del Conte left in 2017, whereas Gary Patterson left in 2021. So no hiring, no firing. But they got along just fine. Some of the best years of those TCU years were certainly with Chris Del Conte at the helm, which is why he advanced his career the way he did. And Chris Del Conte, a New Mexico native, is obviously now at Texas and one of Fernando's not just mentors. I mean, he has a lot of mentors, but he's the most recent one, right? He's the guy that just a few weeks ago they're still sitting in meetings together, right? So
and I think the no firing aspect with Del Conte is probably maybe the most meaningful thing there, because that was a pretty acrimonious breakup with TCU and Gary Patterson. That was not well received by a lot of people around that building, including a certain Jerry Kill.
Correct.
So yes. Let's grab a tier from the portal. Craig, I am all in. He was the best quarterback I saw in person this year, even if he didn't connect on a couple of those third down throws against New Mexico. He was a stud. I would be shocked if he didn't end up at Oklahoma for Arbuckle,
though. There was another one here I'm scrolling through to find. We were asked if we knew real quick, I'll throw this up there while I'm looking for the one I'm looking for.
I saw this on Twitter. Somebody tweeted, was it Cinco de Cinco, I think? Tweeted at Kurt Warner, like, are you interested in coming to New Mexico? And Kurt, who is a good follow on Twitter, but kind of a funny follow because he's complaining about football. like how we're just not teaching quarterbacks anymore. Like,
he's a shake his fist at the cloud, old man kind of thing when it comes
back
to
when I was with the Rams, we used to read defenses, dang it. And Kurt Warner replied to, I think it was Cinco de Cinco.
Former Lobo basketball manager, by the way.
No kidding, really. That's a good tidbit there. You're like, yeah, I'd love to fix the offense in New Mexico. Like, hell yeah. So maybe you hire
Fix the
Gary
offense
Patterson
in
to run the defense and
the
Kurt to run
offense
the
in New
offense.
Mexico. I don't think Kurt Warner knows how good the offense was this year. This was asked earlier. Costa del Verde Entertainment is the name on YouTube. And any idea what Devin was getting from NIL this year? I don't know what he was getting this year, but I'm confident I know what he was about to get offered to stay here, and it was significant. It was well into the six figures. Wasn't seven figures, but it was closer to seven than it was to I guess 5. That makes sense. Somebody says here, I bet it was at least 500,000. I don't know that it was this past year, but I'm confident in telling you that I think it would have been well over that had he stayed.
Yeah.
And money I think was lined up for it to be well over $500,000 had he stayed. And my guess is, and this is a guess, this is what I say we shouldn't do as reporters and have done all that, but my guess is he ends up at Utah with Beck, not at Utah State with Mendenhall. We shall see. But go ahead.
Pete Nakos of On3 put out a report.
Not breaking news?
Pete, not really. It was yesterday's news. I just didn't put it on my timeline. Just getting tired of tweeting. Pete or Steve Wilfong, one of the On3 guys, did put out that story that there's all these Utah quarterbacks transferring, all that to Wilson and Rose and all those guys. Like, I don't think they have like a true quarterback on the roster right now. And some of that is certainly believed to be that there's a very high probability that Devin Dampier will end up at the University of Utah with Jason Beck. There was, I think I took a screenshot of it. There was one really interesting bit from that report, though, and I'll read it to you right now. Sources tell On3's Steve Wiltfong and me, so Pete Nakos, that Vanderbilt is another school to watch for Devin Dampier. The Commodores scored big this season with transfer quarterback Diego Pavia, and they're expected to be in the mix on Dampier.
I haven't talked to you about this, Sean, but I was told Saturday that Vanderbilt has him number 2 on their board of who they are targeting in the portal this offseason.
Were you actually told this, or are you just saying this?
100%.
You were actually told this?
100%. I don't know who
number 1 is. We need to talk off air then. Who are you talking to?
I don't know who number 1 is in Vanderbilt's portal wish list, but I was told Devin Dampier is absolutely on their list, and we know he has success playing for Becks.
He has. And what Beck offense do you prefer? Do you prefer the Tim Beck, not Coastal Carolina Tim Beck, but the Pittsburgh State Tim Beck offense, or the Jason Beck offense, the kind of veer and shoot? What do you prefer?
G Wade's top 3: Gary Patterson, Troy Vincent, Jason Beck.
I think he means Brian Vincent. I think he means Brian Vincent.
Oh, yeah. Brian Vincent was the guy that's at UL Monroe and now coaching Eden Armenta, right?
Yes, and General Booty, his other quarterback entered the portal today after his 1 year at ULM.
And remember, General Booty did a visit here.
Did he do a visit here? I don't even remember.
General Booty did a visit here.
I thought he just had the offer, Geoff.
What's that?
I thought he just had the offer.
Oh, no, I don't know about an offer.
I thought he just had the offer in the portal.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, he did have an offer, and he did a visit here, too, though.
When did he do the visit? I didn't know Booty visited.
2 years ago. Yep, it was before your time, I believe.
Oh, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I believe it was 2 years ago, I believe. I'm sorry.
So I thought you were talking between this offseason and last offseason.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I think this was before your time, I believe. In the offensive line, I just remember, General Booty, had he been the quarterback at UNM, the offensive line, it is their duty to protect that booty, would have been their slogan, which is the slogan when any booty is the quarterback at USC or UL Monroe or maybe future UNM.
So moving on.
I'm pretty proud of that, by the way.
We talked about G Wade. We talked about Gary Patterson. Brian Vincent, he would definitely get a pay bump here. He's making, I think, about $600K at ULM. Definitely get a pay bump here too. It was not a great start, a great end of the season, but it was a really stinking good start. But I think he's pretty well, from what I can tell, he's pretty well aligned with what's his name, the AD there. He was the AD at Utah State, Hartwell. It seems like Hartwell, and they're doing. I think they're really working to try and get some facilities going down there and get guys paid out more. So I would be a little bit hard pressed to see that happen. But he's a familiar name at the very least. I don't know if he has.
I honestly think he would have been a decent option here had Gary Patterson, had Bronco Mendenhall not ended up being available. Look, let's not revisionist history on Bronco's time here. Let's not forget everyone gave Eddie a pat on the back when he landed Bronco. Getting the offseason coaching grades of an A and all that kind of stuff. Like everyone thought this was going to work out, and frankly, for the most part, it did up until it didn't. Right up until he left. So, I did want to throw this one up there too. Aztec to Tacoma talking about the Tom Herman thing, and I do think a lot of people would feel this. It seems a little underwhelming just because he got fired at FAU. I think Lobo needs to go big.
I think this would be an iteration of going big, to be honest with you.
I think Tom Herman to New Mexico would be big, but I also think it would be received as underwhelming. And
there's also the negative connotation that comes with, well, he's his guy and something
right.
like that he would probably have to overcome.
Yeah, and alignment is a buzzword now in management in general, but also with athletic directors in particular. But it was an alignment's a word that Fernando told me the day he was hired, and I talked to him on the phone. He said, "I'm big on alignment. Like it is important to me to have everybody on the same page with stuff. We can, in meetings and all that kind of stuff, talk about different approaches to things and this and that. But like at the end of the day, we need to be aligned and all on the same page with where we're going." He's worked 3 times with Tom Herman. Getting football right, you need the alignment of the AD and the football coach to probably be on the same page. So I do think that there's a possibility here, no matter how it would be received. Winning the press conference doesn't mean you win any games. And sometimes you kind of have to take the L on that press conference. Frankly, I don't think Broncos press conference was necessarily great last year. And his first introduction to fans at the pit, he didn't even say anything. He just kind of waved.
I think he won. I think he's undefeated in press conferences for the most part. I think
Broncos
conference. And I think honestly, Herman, like as a Tacoma, like I understand why it would be underwhelming. I was shocked this year that his FAU tenure ended as soon as they just 2 seasons, didn't even finish out the season. And it was pretty messy in terms of, he fired the DC, right before he got fired. And then the interim, but I'm forgetting who the interim was, immediately brought back the DC and said, yeah, we're finishing out the season and all that too. I do think fans would, they'd look back at that, that 13-1 season at Houston or whatever. And they look back, well, I mean, he wasn't quite living up to the Texas size expectations, but he was winning games at Texas and all that too. I think people would find a way to talk themselves into it. And Herman's Herman, I'm not like trying to do PR for him. He is a wicked smart person, like insanely smart. And that guy can call plays for sure. So it would be interesting. And I'd be curious to see how that staff would kind of shake out. Kurt wants to fix the offense with his kid at QB. Yes. EJ Warner, who is his son. He was at Temple, and then I believe FAU under Herman, which is another really interesting wrinkle too, is in the portal right now. So he has to either go to he probably needs to go to Kennesaw State now, get the Owls trifecta, or Rice. Wait, no, he was at Rice and then FAU, I think. Right now, Rice and then Temple. Just a lot of Owl schools. One of those. Any chance on Tony White? He was a Nebraska defensive coordinator this season. He just got hired at Florida State. I think just because of the Florida State hiring, no. I don't. I frankly don't. He's a 3-3-5 disciple. He's a Rocky guy for sure. I don't know. I think if I remember, he was in the mix for the UCLA job last year a little bit too. So I don't know. My gut right now is no, but you never know. Yeah, Herman he's got a good record for sure. And I think you got to really piece apart that record too. One fabulous, season at Houston was, 13 wins on that right there. And he definitely did that. Geoff, you're moving around way too fast, dude. With these questions, some
of these I'm just putting up there so people can see them. I don't expect us necessarily to address them all.
What if we put all money into basketball? Could we be Gonzaga? Do you think so?
No, Gonzaga's a private school getting a ton of money. It's not it wouldn't work like that. But also, you can't just ignore football at this level. If you're in a league like Gonzaga was in the West Coast Conference, or if you're in the Big East where you don't have football, that would be a little bit different. But those are the only 2 examples really where not having football allows you to still flourish in basketball, and it's Gonzaga and then the Big East. There's not really a whole lot of other options. You could say Wichita State, but they aren't what they were 5-10 years ago. And they kind of struck gold with one coach there, and also happen to have some very rich Cook brother donations and money in that program. New Mexico doesn't quite have that kind of money. So yeah, I don't think so, Eddie. I think you do have to invest and make a good faith effort to make football right at New Mexico to get this going. I will throw this out there for you just to get the name out and conversation out. JC's asking too much baggage for this program, but what about Art Briles? I think the baggage thing is right.
Too much baggage, and if he got hired, I would write the column that day slamming it as a bad hire. Yeah, I'd write the column.
And Sean would write that column. There's your answer.
I'd write a good 2K word column, and I'd smash the thing. Sorry about that.
This isn't wrong, Eddie. Here for the La Bamba references. Let's do it. We keep the La Bamba references coming. And just in case any of you really have a high opinion of Sean right now, let's fix that. Watch this. Watch what happens here, everybody. Hey, Sean, have you seen La Bamba?
Gosh, I have only been speculated to have seen the movie La Bamba.
Sean has never seen La Bamba, and he's never eaten a grape. I mean, come on.
I saw somebody up above, and it made me think about grapes too. Maybe somebody made a comment, maybe not suggesting Urban Meyer as the future head coach in New Mexico. If Urban Meyer is hired as the head coach in New Mexico, I will fill like a bathtub with grapes and just down the whole freaking thing, and then lay down on the couch and watch La Bamba 3 times in a row. And then, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. Transfer portal needs regulation. All the power shouldn't be in the players' hands. Well, as Geoff pointed out, it was in the coaches' hands for a really long time too. And that didn't always play super well, at least for the players. Yeah, it is a lot. And I do have sympathy, like knowing people that, in my personal life that have, worked in football and worked in these kind of seasons and all that, and seen how poorly it is structured in terms of the timelines and all that. Yeah, it's hell when the portal opens. It's really miserable for football staffers in particular. I believe it's miserable for basketball staffers too. And it's just a lot. I don't think it's long-term. Like, I'm going to sound like a middle-aged dad here, as some people in the journal would like me to. But yeah, it's probably not healthy in the long term, but the, Pandora's box is open. And I think as long as it is open, and I don't know if you can close it, you have to figure out some way to put a couple more guardrails on it. But I think far too many coaches come out and, really pop we need guardrails on that without saying, what actually needs to be done. I think a lot of guys will really just kind of push the issue a little bit and then say, well, I don't know. Like, yeah.
I'll say this on my thoughts on it. I'm all for player empowerment. I'm kind of on the extreme of I want the players to have way more piece of the pie than they've ever had. And I like what they have right now, but I would be in agreement that you need timelines on this stuff. Somehow you need to structure some timelines on this.
Yeah.
Because holding up a team in limbo and all that, and some penalties for, if you want to say, recruiting while they're under contract or playing for another school, some of those penalties need to be enforced, and there do need to be timelines. But I think that's about it. I don't think you need salary caps. I don't think you need any of that kind of stuff. I think if coaches are allowed to go earn what they can for their family, so should players. This is a multi-billion with a B dollar industry, and everybody involved in it should be able to make in an open market what they can possibly make on it. And if you don't want to call them employees, then you got to use this NIL structure, which is sort of, frankly, kind of playing around with the law a little bit on whether or not it is the right way to do it. They should be employees, but once you do that, you're into a whole new opened can of worms, and that's not going to happen. But the days of thinking of old school, that's not how it used to be. They should play for free and play for a college education. Yeah. When you see a quarterback, look, Diego Pavia making what he's making at Vanderbilt, Devin Dampier making, JT Toppin making $1 million this year at Texas Tech. Don't tell me that they should get a free education and be happy with it.
Yeah.
He's changed his whole family's life. He changed his mom's life. He changed his future life. 1 year of college basketball. And this is on top of whether or not he gets to go play pro or not. No, some of these kids should be given the right that the coaches have, which is to go make what they can. And I'm sorry it hurts some fans' feelings. It sucks to cover it that way too. I like covering year 1 to year 4 growth of a player and all that too. But man, I just, not at the expense of the players, am I going to say it should go back to how it used to be? because I don't believe that's true.
As an aside, this cycle for football hasn't been that bad too. Just to put this out there because it made me thinking of this. You, as a coach, you're not allowed to complain about tampering in a press conference anymore without just naming whoever is tampering with your players.
Yeah,
I think media, fans in general are just sick of hearing, they're tampering with us. These outside forces are coming in and they want to take our players.
Then tell us, give us names.
Name the damn coach. Name them. Just get it done. Really, Sean, honestly, you can't be the beat writer if you haven't seen La Bamba Man. Does Lucas know that? I would like to keep.
I don't make the rules, man. The rules are the rules. The rules are the rules. And here's another rule Craig brings up. Grapes are for closers.
Not much of more of a middle relief guy. It's kind of my wheelhouse there. So, yeah.
Worldwide Liberty, this is just what I addressed. I didn't actually see your comment, but NIL is unconstitutional. You have the right contract to and sign away your name, image, and likeness in exchange for a free education. If you don't like the contract, don't play. I can't tell how much of this is sarcasm and how much of it may not be. If this is totally serious, I just think the days of expecting a bunch of post 18-year-old young men, whether you want to call them kids or not, legally in this country at 18, you are a different status. And if you want to say that they just sign away their own image, name, and likeness and ability to make money off of who they are and what they do for most of their time, if you don't want to say it's for a living, and they should just be happy with the school scholarship, that's just, it's very outdated. It's very frankly, it's ridiculous. And no, they shouldn't be. They should have the right to change their life and their families' lives, just like coaches have the ability to do the same. What else we got here? Adam, in terms of basketball, do you have a timeline and or details of the altercation, events, and any updates? This will be a big jump. Let me address this because I have seen a couple of these comments, and it seems like something off the court impacting the team, although I still believe we have good chances. Look, let me address there's a lot of doom and gloom about what happened Saturday, and it was a horrible loss. They were 20-point favorites, and they didn't play very good. It was 20-point favorites last Wednesday against San Jose State. Losing to NMSU isn't as bad as last year when they lost to Air Force. The numbers aren't the same. Air Force was a worse team than NMSU, and it isn't a rivalry where the rivals get up for a game. It was a horrible loss, but like to think that the season is over, and to think that it was that big a deal isn't true. Is there distractions from last week in terms of the allegations about what happened on the plane? Absolutely. I think this team went in the tank last week when the Shane Dumas-Sanchez allegations and lawyer up in informing the team that he might sue the university that they might sue. I think that's absolutely a distraction that kind of put a wet blanket over what was good chemistry on the team, frankly. As hard as that is to hear and believe after you hear a kid say, I was punched and nobody did anything to help me. The chemistry on this team that I witnessed, being around the team traveling and at practices and at games, I thought the chemistry was very good. I do think what may come out of this at some point is all the witnesses on the plane who some I have talked to, who say they didn't see exactly the same way as Shane, but did see something happen and what they saw happen and all that. I think we will find out there wasn't some guy just sitting there quietly getting punched, that there was a back and forth between two players, Shane being one of them, saying some things that I don't think Shane or the other player or the team would like to come out, but things that 20-year-old kids probably say to each other a lot when they're around each other year round and in tight quarters all the time and all that kind of stuff. So once the lawyers got involved, the timeline on this got really, really slow. There's not going to be a whole lot of news on in-house discipline and all that kind of stuff. Frankly, in-house discipline isn't something that you generally make public by its very definition. So I can tell you the person who is accused of having done this and without any charges being filed or someone coming out, the name's out there to a lot of people. You guys can probably figure it out. But the accused player has played every game since. And Shane, who was not going to be playing this year, has not been kicked off the team. I mean, I can't imagine he ever plays as a Lobo again at this point once you see your team. But I'm going to I don't think he's formally been kicked off the team, nor will he during this whole process. I'm going to see if his name is still on the roster and all that kind of stuff. So where all that stands, it's going to be really slow once you get a lawyer involved, and that's where it stands. I would be shocked if this actually gets to any sort of discovery stage where you start testifying and asking people for depositions who witnessed what did happen on the plane and off of it when they got off in Palm Desert and Palm Springs. I don't think it'll ever get to that. I think there will be an agreement of some sort long before it gets to that point. And when I know, I'll certainly let you know. Desert Lobo 72 has a question to sort of transition from their attendance on Saturday for Lobos versus WNMU, less than 8,000. I mean, for a Division II team in December, yeah, it's going to be low, but season ticket number is over 8,000. So the announced attendance will be a minimum of what the season ticket number is, which is, I believe, 81, 8,200, something like that. I'd be shocked if some students don't show up. So if you think the Western New Mexico attendance is going to be announced as anything lower than 10,000, I'd be really, really shocked. And that's how season tickets work. That's how it works everywhere, not just at a place like New Mexico that just lost to a rival on Saturday. That's how it works everywhere. You don't get as big attendance when you play the D2 school. You don't get as big attendance when you're coming off a loss. You don't get as big attendance the week after finals when a lot of players and coaches, rather players and students, are just off of their finals, but also a lot of the students are off, for their Christmas break after their Wednesday final or their Friday final. So all those kind of things play a fact. Attendance on Saturday is going to be bad, and guess what? It was going to be bad whether or not they beat New Mexico State. Worldwide Liberty, a follow-up to the NIL stuff, let them go pro then. They're pro right now. They're making money. So are the coaches off of them. For years, they've been making millions and millions, and administrators too. And guess what? They get to do it too. You don't get to shake our fist at the cloud and say it should be the way it should be. That's just not how it works anymore. What else we got here? Instead of making, if you want to say this, I'm all for this, and this could be a path we talk about at another time. We're already 90 minutes in. We're about to sign off here pretty soon. Instead of making a mockery of higher education. If you want to have that discussion, that's a different discussion. A mockery of higher education isn't the players making money and the coaches it's okay to make millions. A mockery of higher education in this realm, if you want to have that discussion, is whether or not the big business of college athletics should be in the higher education system.
Should you just separate it out right at this point?
You separate it out, and I frankly believe I make my living off of covering at college athletics in the higher education structure. I actually probably fall on the side of I don't see why this is in the same realm as biology and chemistry professors trying to teach future scientists and doctors and law schools teaching future lawyers. I don't see why this is still connected when it became a multi-billion-dollar company, or industry rather. But the day it became a multi-billion-dollar industry, you don't get to keep the players out of it. You don't get to keep the labor force out of it and call yourself a legal entity anymore. So I know you're dead serious. I get it now. You are dead serious. The conversation isn't about the players making money. It's about whether or not you want it in the higher education system, which is what you just said. And I'm fine with that. But don't tell me that it's okay for everybody to make millions off of this industry except the labor force who happens to be the players. That's a mockery. That's a joke. The players get to have a little bit of a say in all this because they're the ones out there risking their health, risking their time and all of that. Not just for an education, but they get to be a piece of the puzzle too. If you're telling me the education is worth it, then why aren't coaches getting paid with scholarship and free tuition? It's because they get to make money off all this, right? So there we go. Your knowledge of the Constitution is outdated. There we go. Let's go back on correct Bryant.
Brian Vincent, yes, current ULM. We went from that to talking ULM football. Yes, Brian Vincent, the first-year head coach at the University of Louisiana Monroe, who is a good ball coach in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think it would be interesting to see if they go back to him on that note too. G Wade, you also had the earlier comment too. We didn't address it. Would Jason Beck be interested in coming back? I don't know. I mean, he would certainly, he would have the the resources kind of lined up to keep probably lined up. I don't even know at this point. To keep Devin around and stuff like that too. But I think that ship has sailed. Honestly, I think my sense of the situation is that Beck is committed to Utah, and he's going in with Kyle Whittingham, and they are gonna try and make things happen in the Big 12. And I'd be shocked if they didn't. Josh Branch, yes, like not opening the portal until after the championship. I could care less about how much they're making. Just make it reasonable. I think it's still reasonable to have the portal open before the championship. We play the championship on January 20th. And like, as long as we're doing the school ties and all this too, I
could see it maybe at the end of December, maybe a compromise from the end of the regular season to the end of the championship. Most schools then get through their bowls at least at the end of December. Maybe the first week of January or something like that. I don't think you can go well into January because then you're talking.
I don't think you can either.
Semesters have already started at a bunch of schools.
Exactly.
There has to be at least a small window where if you're going to make a change immediately, you need to have that option to go ahead and do it. So you're there for spring ball and the spring semester and all that kind of stuff. Soon they won't even have to go to classes. Again, another matter. It doesn't have anything to do with their right to make money, just like everyone else.
I'll add this on the portal too. We have the fall portal window, which is, technically open today. If you had a fired head coach or your head coach left or whatever, the portal's been open for you for the 30 days after and all that. And that's open again right now. This closes on the 28th. But there is still a spring portal window too. And that was something that was kind of hotly debated and contested. I know Bronco voted against having the spring portal. He said they benefited from the spring portal, and a lot of coaches do, but they also want to get rid of the spring portal too, particularly for football. I do see the cases for why the spring portal would actually end up benefiting student athletes, probably more. I also see the case for, you might be a guy who comes into a situation and some of the stuff, I think it was Cooper Lega, the former Utah State quarterback who went to Tulsa and just didn't get paid any promised NIL money and all that and didn't play a ton and all that as well this season. That's kind of what he's alleging. I think it would be nice to have that out for players in some ways too. But yeah, I do see the case for why the spring portal should go, that window. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of things being pitched and will continue to be pitched down the road in terms of fixing the portal or making it just less kind of hell on earth balls to the wall for football staffers and players and all that too.
John Scott's got a comment, no salary cap, which is what I said. Players should get one free transfer per career, then sit out a year for a second. I'm willing to explore that kind of stuff, but again, when you have antitrust exemptions and antitrust laws in place, and you're calling this, you're giving some antitrust benefits to the NCAA and college sports in general. You're getting into we're already there, but you're getting into a weird legal realm, which is why the NCAA hasn't won not once has the NCAA won one of these legal battles. You're getting into a spot where you can't limit people from making money on an open market in this country. And the players, frankly, are included in that. Not once has a court sided with the NCAA on any of this kind of stuff. So that includes your ability to transfer. That includes a whole lot of stuff, and your ability to make money now. So there we are with all that.
Can I say one thing?
Yep.
Coaching candidates, I'm a little hurt and disappointed that nobody threw in old Billy B today. A little hurt that nobody floated the name. That would be sensational if he went to North Carolina. Absolutely sensational if that's real, but we'll see what happens.
So he was on McAfee today, I think, and basically said it will be an NFL team at the college level. Or
that's what he would do, yes. In terms of like the interest and all that, he's like, well, we just had a couple good conversations. Yeah, we're on.
I'm going to skip this one. I'll throw it up there. They're now pros. Yes. They're not student athletes. Yes. I agree with all that. It's also legal.
I don't know if the NFL's fake. The NFL's pretty fake. Dang real.
What's happening now is also legal. So that's good. Real quick, Ronnie, newsflash, Jimmy, they already do online classes. You won't see any players on campus. Players on campus is like running into Bigfoot. That is accurate. Some coaches have sort of required their players to take at least one on campus class just so they can see some other students and all that. but most schools, and it's been this way for years, long before there was NIL and long before transfer portal. The advent of online classes sort of changed college athletics around the country, and maybe nobody knew that at the time, but it absolutely happened years ago. Very few in-person classes. Not saying they don't happen. Some. If you take Division I basketball, 364 schools, I'd be shocked if more than 20 of them even have the majority of their players taking the majority of their classes in person. It just doesn't happen anymore. Online classes, they're watching game film. Okay. But yeah, it's happened quite a bit. Was the dude from Arizona? Was it the dude from Arizona? Sorry, because of the timing of these questions, I wish my setup when these questions came up had a better timeline. I don't know who that's in reference to.
I think he's talking about the incident, punching and that.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. What was it? The dude from Arizona? I'm out of the loop. I mean, there's a lot of speculation as to who it was out there. I can tell you, you can narrow it down, and if you want, and it's one of the guys that's played every game since, and I'll leave it at that. But I'll also leave it at what I've been told is it was absolutely something that was not just a one-sided thing per se. So, who do we get here? I'm asking next home game. I will ask Saturday. I talked to Snake before this past game, and he did not have his face painted up. I was a little worried about him.
What?
His wife was not around, though. She paints his face for him, and his hand was hurt, and he has arthritis, and got the whole spiel about it, man. So he wore a mask instead. He wore a mask, but he did not have his normal gigolo clown.
Juggalo.
Yeah, not gigolo. Sorry, his normal juggalo, insane clown posse look to him, and there we go. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy H is putting out who he thinks it was, and that's fine. Jimmy H. I'm not putting out who people think it was, and without any charges. One person's gone public and done on-camera interviews. I will say Shane's attorney will not return my calls and will not return any of my emails. Has spoken multiple times to multiple TV stations, but has not once returned the newspaper's email or phone call. I don't know why that is. It could be a personal thing with me or how I'm approaching the story. I don't know. He has also not done so with another reporter in Santa Fe. He has only gone to TV. He has not spoken with any other journalists about this other than people who are putting it on TV. I don't know what that says, but it is what it is. I cannot get his side of the story if he will not talk to me. So
JC has a recent comment that I would like to discuss briefly.
Is it which one here?
JC 337.
Yeah, but I see two of his comments. Okay, is it this one?
No, well, we can talk about this one. What
does Patino need to do to get Flip unlocked? I think Flip's unlocked. I don't know that he had a great game the other night. I think he's unlocked. I think Philip Borovicanin is going to be a huge part of the rest of the season. I think we're there. Okay, so JC down here, Sean, is it this one? I will oblige you with the ridiculous. Is one Nick Saban on the football radar?
I don't think so, although he was very thinly linked to the West Virginia opening, West Virginia native, Nick Saban. And yeah, although that's apparently Rich Rod is sort of in the mix back on that one, and that would be kind of awesome. Yeah, I don't think he is. I, for one, would be very happy with that hire. That would be really stinking fun in a lot of different ways. But I think you can watch, I mean, if you watch Nick on game day, like when they had Sark and Kirby on, and he was kind of ragging him and all that too, it seems like he's having a ton of fun in his current role on game day, like a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I ever thought he would. Because I didn't think he would really stick to that hard, but he seems like he's having a blast right now.
Any idea what
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. It's fair. It's probably pretty good, but I'll bet you to get a little bit more as head coach here, but maybe equal if nothing else. But let's see here, and then we're about to wrap up. So I do want to thank all you guys here. While I kind of try and throw a few of these extra ones on.
Oh, somebody asked us. We did not put it on the screen. Just hit that. UNM naming an interim coach. Did they do it last year when?
I'm glad you remembered that.
Last year when Danny Gonzalez got fired, I believe it was BV who was the sort of kind of maybe interim coach at that time. And even though they weren't playing games, it was just kind of like, make sure players, they have the facility open and can do things. There is not an interim coach right now. Okay. It has not been named, and that's a question I've asked.
Yeah, I would. My guess would be some strength coaches and stuff like that are available around, and trainers and that kind of stuff, to keep the gym open and all that stuff that you can still work out, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
Bill Belichick on the recruiting trail would be interesting, hilarious,
amazing, absolutely incredible. I mean, like, what recruiting picks does he need? He's Bill Belichick. Like, and also, like, that guy.
You missed me at the introduction. My name is Bill Belichick. That's all you need to know.
And I think like the NIL aspect of it, like Bill was like ruthless with the cap when he was with the Pats and all that too. Like that would be fascinating to see that play out as well too.
Adam, you're right. 1,000. I think live after the fact we broke 1,000 on some of these, but I think the weekly show. I believe you might be correct that the 1,000 is probably the most we've had live. Hey, Geoff, is the 20-game schedule going to kill the Mountain West? Staring down a barrel of a 2-bid league. 2 might be generous after what happened Saturday, man. There were a lot of bad losses, including the Lobos as 20-point favorites to the Aggies. Nevada was a big favorite, lost to Loyola Marymount. Boise State at home, and it will be counted as a home game, even though it wasn't in Extra Mile Arena. It was in Boise, and they sold the tickets. That will be counted as a home game that they lost as favorites to Washington State. We're down 24 at the time. What else? There were a couple other ones that were bad losses. It was a horrible Saturday for the Mountain West, and frankly, the only good win so far is UNM's over UCLA, Boise State over Clemson, San Diego State over Houston, of course, and over Creighton as well. Not a lot of great wins in the non-conference, so playing more Mountain West teams would have helped last year when all the Mountain West teams had great computer numbers. All the Mountain West teams don't have great computer numbers now. So, the 20-game schedule is not going to help the league this year. All right. Couldn't pay Eddie enough to care about Mountain West football. Thanks for your time, good sirs.
Eddie, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you being here. Go Lobos.
Unironically, like, thank you.
Yes. Can the state improve its offering for all schools' athletics departments? I would hope so. I'm at a point where I think there's money available, and you could improve some things right now, and that includes at your athletic department level. Real quick, Ronnie, I do not appreciate this because I like what they did. Can you report what high school wood shop did they use to make the Rio Grande?
That's not very.
All right, Ronnie.
It is funny.
I actually think the trophy was fine. I like it. Yeah. Andy Hageman, who does play-by-play. Actually, Adam Deal does the play-by-play for USL, for New Mexico United's USL team. For 1017, Andy Hageman, his analyst, is also a woodworker here in town. He actually made the trophy. And I think the trophy is just fine. So
and they're branding the trophy, correct? Like after wins and all that, they're doing that.
Yeah, they handed the trophy. There's video now in the locker room of New Mexico State. 2 UNM students presented them the trophy afterwards, and they were very happy to get it. And it is with them until next year. And there we go.
It's gonna look cool when it gets broken in. And I also, as Geoff kind of said, I like the spirit of it, that it was, a student-led thing. That's the coolest thing.
I'm not opposed to putting jokes on the screen, though. All right, guys, thank you very much for your comments, for your questions, and an hour and 43 minutes of listening to us ramble.
Longest live show ever. Thank you to everybody being a part of history today. You will never forget December 9th, 2024.
Yeah, thank you all for being a part of history. That's right. We're going to have T-shirts made for all of you. Sean, anything else you want to sign off with?
No.
What should people look for? Let's sign off with that. What should people look for now? Is there any way to timeline this thing for the coaching search? I'm talking, obviously. There really is.
I've kind of heard from others is that it's going to be sooner rather than later, and it needs to be sooner rather than later. Be sooner rather than later. I'm talking too fast. Because of the portal is open, and you have to rebuild this roster. Even if you get some guys to return, you're going to have some gaping holes. I tweeted today. Nick Trujillo, when he announced, they are down like 2,630 receiving yards from last season out of like 728, excuse me. That's very similar with the rushing numbers there too. It's very similar with total tackles and all that. A lot of snaps played are just in the portal, and some could come back. Most a good deal probably won't. But yeah, I think
guesswork on my part, but I wouldn't be shocked if when we do this show next Monday,
we have
a head coach, maybe over the weekend, but possibly by the end of this week. But I'd be shocked if this goes much longer than a week from now. I think in the next week you'll know who the head coach is, and frankly, you'll probably know what quarterback he's bringing in the transfer portal, or what star running back, or what players that coach or his offensive coordinator might be bringing.
Yeah, I would be. I don't want to say end of the week or anything like that. I don't want to hold myself and lock myself into that. But I would be shocked if it was later rather than sooner. I'll add one thing too. Something I've been thinking about as well. I don't think you should hire a guy because he's going to bring these many good players with him from his previous school and all that. I don't think you should do that for just like one crop or anything to kind of lighten the load of rebuilding the roster and all that. I think you just have to make the right hire, what you think is the right hire at the right time, and what New Mexico needs. In my mind, though, I'm kind of like thinking if I was making this hire and decision making, there are some FCS guys in particular that I would be, hey, if you could, give those guys an opportunity, some of those players that you're with to, play FBS and be at that level, that would certainly maybe help make things more palatable in the overall rebuild and all that too. It would kind of lessen the blow of maybe a really down year one and all that, as opposed to somebody who isn't bringing those players too. But yeah, to wrap it up, a lot going on. Probably a hire sooner rather than later. That's kind of the sense that I'm getting at the very least. And we will see what's happening. Ronnie, pull up this last Ronnie one. Ronnie, you said this before. I don't think Meyer's not Theo Von long. Theo's
He's shorter on the sides than you're Theo Von, man.
Yeah, he kind of, I don't know about that. Maybe I will do a mullet. We'll see what happens. An embarrassed Theo.
You got some rosy cheeks. You look a little embarrassed.
I naturally like rosy cheeks. I think just meeting me would corroborate that.
It's like a Midwestern thing.
Is it? Is that?
It is.
I
I always thought it was because it's cold, but I just think more Midwesterners tend to have a little bit rosier cheeks. I don't know why you're talking about me in the shower, Jimmy. Come on. This isn't OnlyFans, man. This is Albuquerque Journal Sports Live, and we do thank you all for being a part of it.
For real.
Till next time, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for participating, and follow our coverage at abqjournal.com. Sean, talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.